The following video will contain content meant for mature audiences, so if I hear you laugh at the word booty once, I'm afraid you'll have to leave. I'm not sure if I've mentioned it before, so I'm just going to mention it again now, but the Dead Space series has started everything for me in regards to survival horror and my love for it. Well, the first two games did. The third one, we'll talk about that some other century, or never. The fact of the matter is that Dead Space is one of my favorite games of all time, or franchises of all time. Specifically the second one, since I recall beating that game several times on almost every difficulty. The atmosphere, the creature design, and overall horrific tension kept and continues to keep me optimistic for the places survival horror can go. And with that, I think I'll tell you guys how I got into Dead Space. This is one of the first kinds of videos I've done like this, at least to my knowledge, in recent memory, where I've just kind of talked about how I got into a game while also looking back on it. I guess you could say my other retrospective videos are like that too, but I don't know. This one feels different for some reason. Could be something in the... I'm not going to say that joke. Move on. We're moving on. So, I was over at my grandparents' place with my brothers when one of my cousins came by with his Xbox 360. The one with the red ring of death, you know, it's that thing. He had a selection of games to choose from. I don't entirely remember the selection he had vividly. All I do know is that I saw a cover with a severed arm floating in space and I was like, let me play that. Okay, more accurately, I was cautiously optimistic since at the time I didn't do very well with gore. These days, I'm the exact opposite since I look forward to it in most forms of media, which should concern me to an extent, but you know, I'm still functional. Anyway, keep in mind that the me of that time had not experienced Resident Evil or Silent Hill yet. Dead Space was my first survival horror game. So I booted up the game, my brother sat back, my cousin said he hadn't gotten that far in it, and I was shaking like crazy. Fast forward to my first encounter with the necromorph, the slasher, and I was terrified. There was a lot of running, hiding, screaming, shooting, and all that jazz. It was fun times. Unfortunately, his mom had called for him and said, okay, it's time to go, so he packed it up and then he left. I hadn't gotten the opportunity to play it again since then, or at least not until recently, obviously. I can buy my own games these days. I'm an adult. you get my point. At the time, I didn't get a chance to play it again. However, I did pick up the second game in high school. By then, I was better with gore and the like, not quite like I am now, but I was getting there. Eventually, I could take someone's head getting severed and I just go, ooh, ah, give me the popcorn. I played Dead Space 2 front to back to front on every difficulty, most difficulties actually. And I remember so many lines from that game verbatim that if I were to talk your ear off and tell you all of them, I would burn for what it would do to you. Inventory management in Dead Space 1 and 2 was another one of my favorite things that kept me playing over and over and over again. And don't get me started on the story. Aside from being enthralling and occasionally keeping me up at night, it was interesting and disturbing enough to influence my tastes in horror game stories phenomenally. Dang it, I used that word again. To this day, I remember a certain dream, or I guess you can call it a nightmare, but it was more like a dream to me. It wasn't exactly scary. It was just atmospheric, I guess. Anyway, I remember a dream I had where I was wandering in my high school in one of those engineering suits Isaac wore. I think it was one of the advanced suits. I don't know which one. Clearly, that game had found its way into my head as easily as the markers got into Isaac's. Jokes aside, while I won't talk your ear off about Dead Space 3 here, since I did have a few problems with it, I will say this much. It's not a bad game. It's actually pretty good. I just didn't like it as a Dead Space game. It made me want to vomit until my stomach begged me to stop. Okay, that last part was kind of harsh, but I just wasn't satisfied with it as a Dead Space game, just like Resident Evil fans, me included, weren't satisfied with Resident Evil 6 as a Resident Evil game. Doesn't mean it was a terrible game. Why? Why would you do that? Sorry. I still enjoyed Dead Space 3 for the highs, so long as I ignored the lows. Yes, I'm still bitter, okay? And what makes matters worse is that as much as I'd like to revisit the Dead Space universe in a new game with a new protagonist, ideally, that's most likely not going to happen since EA decided to snap Visceral Games out of existence. That's another topic I can get into later, but as of right now, the most I or any of us Dead Space fans can ever hope for is a remaster of Dead Space 1, 2, and 3, and maybe any of the spin-off games. Or just a port of those 3 games to current-gen consoles. I play on PC primarily, so I'm fine with the way the games are. They still hold up pretty well graphically, so I'm not complaining. But still, Anyway, I just wanted to make a more laid-back video and tell you about my experiences with the Dead Space franchise. Of course, I didn't want to spoil anything, so I kept it relatively general. If there were any spoilers, well, I threw a tag in the beginning, so you were warned. That said, if you're interested in hearing about my opinions on any of the Dead Space games that I have played, then I can make a follow-up video that will contain spoilers, or I could just answer any questions you have in the comments below. Or you can just shoot me a question on Twitter, just at me. That said, I have been neglecting my Twitter as of late, but hey, I've been getting better at being more consistent at retweeting memes. With that said, I'm TUSDarryl, and I hope you've enjoyed your stay. See ya!